Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. I do have two questions. My first question is, looking through the bill, and you're talking a lot about reasonableness, and I believe that we should be reasonable with these things. One of the things that I don't think is reasonable is for us to treat market rate housing in a different way than we do for affordable housing with respect to adequate public facilities. The constituents in my district that live in areas, frankly, that would be considered affordable housing, or however you wanted to qualify those, are those that need these adequate public facilities more than any other areas in my district. So I don't think it's fair to say to someone, a child in a market rate home, that they have more of a right to a less crowded school or a better school than someone that's in an affordable house. So I'd like to know how you would respond to that.
I think it's pretty simple from my perspective, which is that it's not acceptable to insist that lower income families have inadequate housing facilities. If we can insist that it is important for everyone at every income level to have adequate public facilities, and yes, we're usually talking about schools and water and sewer infrastructure and roads, then I think it is also acceptable for us to insist that there be adequate private facilities, adequate housing facilities, places where people don't have to crowd 3-4 families into a small apartment. And that is what the bill does. It says that at the lowest end of the income spectrum, that there has been a disproportionate effect of the use of that particular tool. It's something that we've probably all seen. We've probably all attended planning commission hearings or city or county council hearings where people talk about, I don't want those folks living in my neighborhood. No more Section 8 housing. No apartments, no compromise. I've seen all the signs. I've heard all the talking points. And what it has done is it's led a very, again, reasonable tool to be abused and misused to punish low-income families. That part of this bill is designed to correct that historical wrongdoing.
Sure, and I don't disagree with that. And we don't even have an APFO in Baltimore County, and we've actually been fighting to get that to correct these ills that you're talking about, because frankly, my communities and some others are those that have been hurt the most from not having these adequate public facilities. But one question with respect to the rail lines in particular. So I have a heavy rail station in my district, an Amtrak station. It's the only one, not only in the state, but in the entire Northeast corridor, and I've spoken to the administration about this, where passengers cross the rail line to get on the train. It is incredibly dangerous. I am very concerned about incentivizing more development around that particular station and potentially creating a very dangerous situation for children and others until we correct that station. So I want to know kind of what your thoughts are about that.
I think if we had replaced in that statement, in that example, if we had replaced dangerous highway that people have to cross, it could be the very same argument. So I completely agree. I completely understand. And I think it's a very, very reasonable conversation to have, that we have designed poor infrastructure. We have subjected low-income families to the worst of it, low-income neighborhoods to the worst of it, and that we ought to do better. What I don't think we can withstand as a state is to say, for some reason, the roofs over people's heads should come last. That is what gets me. That's what I don't understand. That why we must sequence things such that that comes after anything else. When in fact it's the roofs over people's heads, it's housing, it's the things we build that pay for our public infrastructure, our public facilities. And so the chicken or egg conversation, I think, has to be better synthesized by our cities, by our counties, by our state. And I don't disagree at all. And I think it's a very good example to say that we have rail infrastructure or road infrastructure that puts people at risk, or school infrastructure that doesn't do a fair job providing a good space for education. I think these are all reasonable things to articulate, identify, and correct. And I think the General Assembly has done an incredible job trying to address the school side of it. I know the transportation infrastructure is its own conversation and its own fight, but let's also ensure that we are simultaneously building out the housing infrastructure that our families desperately need and deserve.
Okay, thank you. Delegate